'Cause I'm calling the trap, all I can beat it. Calling the trap, yeah. Calling the trap, I can't believe it. Calling the trap.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Coyote Trapping School Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Pope, and my goal is to help you get started trapping and to help you and me become better trappers. If you need trapping supplies, be sure to visit Kotz Brothers Lures, KAATZBROS.com. They carry a full line of trapping equipment, baits and lures, as well as instructional books and DVDs. They're great people to deal with, and they'll get you set up right. Now, let's talk trapping. Hey y'all. In today's episode, I thought we'd talk a little bit about pan covers. And maybe I kind of get into, it's a more broader topic. So it's really kind of pan covers as the catalyst for thinking about things on the trap line. Just what brings this up is I made a post the other day on Instagram and Facebook about using some steel screen pan covers. Well, what kind of I intend to talk about in this episode. And man, I had all kinds of comments from, that's great if you want more toe catches to, I like using leaves and everything in between. And while I appreciate everybody's perspective, because I really do think that everybody has something to offer. So far as everybody's got different experiences and different levels of expertise, and you can just as much learn, pick up something from somebody new to trapping as somebody that's been trapping 30 years. And I guess maybe kind of the way I see it is those people that have been trapping 30 years are more are less open-minded about trapping, may be a good way to put it, and about different things when it relates to trapping. So I was going to run through kind of a few of those things, and then talk about what I'm thinking, why I am trying these steel screen pan covers. And so because I felt kind of like folks might have missed the point of the post. And so, as is evidenced by that post, you can definitely use nearly anything as a pan cover. All a pan cover is to make sure that nothing, as you're sifting, as you're covering that trap, or even, as weather events come, it's just to make sure that nothing gets below that pan that would prevent that trap from firing. You don't want anything to roll under, or the dirt to wash or fill in under that pan to where when something steps on it, it doesn't fire because the pan's not depressed because there's stuff underneath it. And you're trying to keep your trap operational as much as possible. And so, and me personally, I've used a wide variety of things. When I first started, I used coffee filters. I take coffee filter, tear it in half, put it over the pan. I used trash bags for a while. Just take a black trash bag, cut it up into squares. I mean, it's about as cheap and easy as you can get. Now, lately I've been using polyfil a good bit, but there's dozens and dozens of different options, different opportunities. Some that were listed off that people use and that you can find from any trap and supply catalog is latex pan covers, aluminum screen, fiberglass screen. You got your trapper's caps and things that go over the trap so you can bed around and then sift over. Toilet paper, leaves, just about anything that you can think of that, sandwich bags, anything that you can put over that pan or potentially under that pan, like underalls that would keep outside debris, other material from filling in under that pan and preventing it from firing. And I'll be honest, I've used, I've been using polyfil for probably 8 8 to 10 years, maybe something. I mean, I've been using polyfil a long time. I really think it's a good option. But as I've studied, I've been trying to kind of up my trapping game and study more from some more experienced trappers, and several, high production, high output, top of the line trappers talk about using steel screen, specifically steel screen pan covers. And so that's kind of what got me thinking about it. And one thing that I think it's important, Craig O'Gorman calls out in his Hoofbeats of a Wolfer book, and he says specifically, and I wish that the book's so long, I don't remember where that quote is. I didn't dog ear any of this stuff, but he mentioned specifically, and now reading his book, I mean, he comes across as kind of a little bit arrogant, right? And so you can take things the wrong way. And honestly, me, from what I do, I put out information to try to help trappers, right? I mean, that's what I do. And so initially it kind of stings, and I kind of take a little bit of offense, but when you stop and think about it, I mean, it's a valid point. And he talks about just be careful who you're taking advice from, because even though somebody says that they've got 30 years experience trapping, is that 30 years of every day of the year trapping, or is that 30 years of 2 weeks a year trapping, or because that weighs a lot into really truly how much experience people have. And that's one reason, as much as tough as it is sometimes for some of these the higher profile trappers, and really and truly it's not something to single out high profile trappers or top notch trappers, because there's a lot of people that are at the top of their the top level of their category in whatever business or profession that they are in, that come across as arrogant people. But it's just kind of their level of expertise that may make them come across like that. That they don't really mean it like that. There's a lot of people, and trappers are the world's worst, because trappers aren't necessarily the most outgoing, friendly people. I mean, a lot of trappers are kind of rugged and scruffy looking. I mean, just looking at them, you're like, I don't want to talk to that guy. He might bite my head off or something, And so I do think that we're making great strides in that. I mean, I think the trapping community has really opened up and been a lot more accepting and encouraging people that are interested. I think that is absolutely fantastic. I don't know how I got caught off on that tangent, but it's a valid point. Somebody like Craig O'Gorman that has trapped 365 days a year for the past 50 years, or ever how long he's been trapping, no doubt has got more, more experience, more lessons learned on the trap line. He's got more to offer than I do, right? I mean, best over the last couple of years, I've trapped about 60 days a season. So, I mean, 2 months out of the year is not bad for a trapper, because I know there's a lot of us out there that are only able to trap 2 weeks a year, or several weekends out of the year. So but I'm not, it may come across because of the way I put the information that I put out, but I don't consider myself an expert, and I try to make that clear. Like I said before, I think I have things to offer, especially for people who are earlier in their trapping career than me, because I've been trapping for a while, and I've learned things along the way, right? I've had some really great teachers that taught me, and I've kind of learned what I know along the way, and I've used that through the podcast, through YouTube, through social media posts and things like that, to help a lot of people get started trapping. I got a picture today of a guy that caught his first Tennessee bobcat, and said thanks for everything all the information that you're putting out. Heck, let me give you Jay. I'll just use your first name, Jay. I'll give you a little shout out, just so because I know you're listening. But I'm sure that comes across as me portraying myself as an expert. I don't mean to portray myself as an expert, but I have some knowledge that I feel is useful, and I also try to do research and study, and read some of these books from other trappers to try to fill the gaps of what I may not know, to be able to offer, to answer questions and things like that. So that, I guess, just in general, keep that in mind, regardless of who you're watching, regardless of who you're listening to. Just as a hobby trapper, versus a full-time Mark June or Clint Locklear or Craig O'Gorman, whoever, these guys that are trapping year-round in some cases, they've got more experience. They've had more opportunities to test things. So that's one point with some of this, like testing these pan covers. Realistically, it may take me a couple of seasons before I get a really good feel for how this is affecting my trapline catch. Versus if you're professionally predator trapping and you're running 150, 200 sets over a month or 2 months, that could, in 1 month, you could get what, some people get more trapline experience than some people get through 1 or 2 seasons. So, like I say, I think that is worthwhile to keep in mind is experience level, because there's some people that may come out and try to portray themselves as an expert when they don't have that much experience, and there are people that can be led astray, so to speak, because of that. So, and I say all that to say that it's worthwhile to me to look to some of these guys. There's a lot of great free information online on the internet, but some of the more experienced, better known professional, so to speak, trappers, they're not posting YouTube videos, they're not doing things like that. So taking opportunities as you can find them to try to learn and study from those folks is, in my opinion, that is money well spent, because realistically you're either giving time or money, right? So you either take 5 years of time and experience on the trap line to figure something out, or you pay $40 for a DVD or a couple $100 for private lessons, and you figure that out in a week or 2 weeks or a month versus 5 years. Tell me, depending on what your objective is, whether you're fur trapping, whether you're predator trapping, whether you're getting paid for trapping, there's different payoff levels for all that. But really, that's what got me to looking and thinking and just trying to kind of think about things differently, because it can be so easy, some of these guys that may come across as a little bit arrogant, to write them off and say, I don't really like him. Whether you like him or not, he may have some very good information to offer that may be worth listening to regardless. And so that's why I've tried to read O'Gorman's book and read some of these other, and watch some of these videos like Randy Smith, just to see how are these guys doing things. What could I do better? What can I think about differently? Because I've said it before, and I think a lot of us trappers, people in general, get guilty about falling into a rut and doing what's convenient and what's comfortable and what's easy and what's known versus trying something new or different. And so one of the things that really intrigued me about the steel screen pan covers, and these are heavy duty now. I mean, you have to, and it takes some getting used to. So I messed around and went and started trying to set a few traps with these without really playing with them, without really messing with them. And it took me a while to get that first set in, and then I actually figured out I needed to trim my screen a little bit more, because these that I ordered them through Keg Creek Bait and Lures, and they're just kind of a generic number 2 size, and they're a little big for a MB550. And so I trimmed them down. Once I got the hang of how they needed to be fit for trimming them, that made things go a lot smoother. So definitely a learning curve to these, because I mean they're black, heavy duty steel screen, and it's not just throwing a stuffing a little polyfill under the pan. That being said, one of the things that intrigued me about them is the idea that they could serve multiple purposes. And I don't know that that's something that we think about a lot. I don't think about that a lot. I don't think about it subconscious. If somebody brings it up, then that it might get me to thinking about it. But so looking at these pan covers, these steel screen pan covers, because they are more expensive and they take a little more work and a little more getting used to. One of the obvious kind of first benefit issue of using them is it acts as a pan cover. It keeps things from getting under your pan, right? So checkbox number one, done. That's the main objective that we're looking for. But there's a lot of things that can do that, right? That may be quicker and easier to set than these. Well, then if you read and look at what other people say about these things, they start talking about increasing the size of your kill area. Increasing. Some people will go directly with trying to increase the trap pan size, and I've experimented with that some with the expanded pans. And then some people talk about using these as a way to increase your kill area in your pans. And that, I guess, initially right off the bat kind of puts people on edge. And so I had the comments in my Facebook post. People start talking about, well, you don't get more toe catches, or that's a sure bet to use those if you want more toe catches. And so my thoughts are, have you tried them? Because I've been in the same boat of thinking, not being interested in trying something because I was making assumptions about what I thought would happen if you tried it. I looked at the expanded pans years ago, and that was my first, just as a trapper, that's one of the first things you think about. Well, you're going to get a lot more toe catches, pull outs, and that ain't worth messing with. But I never put the effort in and put the time and the experience in to see if that's really the case, or is that just, what you would assume. Do you really know how that trap acts coming out of the ground? Is that trap springing full up? Is the trap, staying put? And so that goes back to what I was talking about people and experience. Yeah, I tried them for a week and I didn't like them. I couldn't figure out how they were set. And, the two coyotes I called, they were toe caught. That's not really an adequate sample size. That's not enough to tell you anything. Like I said, realistically, it'll take me probably 2 seasons of running these to get a good feel for how I think they're affecting my trap line. And that's to me, that's one of the things. You've got to try to. You really need to be tracking some of this stuff to get a true feel for if it works or not. Recording catches, recording misses, recording pullouts, and that's another thing that I would pose to somebody is, well, what's your catch rate? What was your catch rate with the steel screen versus without? What was your pullout rate with the steel screen versus without? Because if it just increases the number of toe catches, so I've never caught a coyote and walked up on him and like, man, that one don't count. He's just caught by a toe. I'm like, heck yeah, I caught a coyote. I don't care what he's caught by the tail. He's mine, So if you're just talking about toe catches, who cares? Now, it wouldn't be the predecessor, but the aftercessor, whatever that word is, is do toe catches result in more pullouts? And so that's something that definitely could be a factor. But there again, you got to think, well, how many pullouts do you have did you have in a normal season running polyfill? You have 2 pullouts a season, 2 pullouts a week, whatever. And how many pullouts did you have with the steel screen? And that's another thing. I try to be pretty detailed on keeping records of my catches and my baiting lure and things like that. But I'm not the best at recording when I have a pull out. You know, I mean, it's just on the trap line, you get sidetracked and you forget. And to me, that's a crucial thing, because, you know, if you averaged 5 pullouts per trapping season, and you went to the steel screen, and then you went up to 10 pullouts per trapping season, well, that could be an issue. But the other thing to look at is what's your overall catch rate do? Did you? And that's something that again can be difficult. You almost have to look at it kind of on a per trap night basis. But, you know, did you catch more animals in the same amount of time or with the same number of traps than you caught without? And that gets into the increased catch area, you know, increased fire area, because if you did catch more animals but you had more pullouts, you know, there's a point where that washes out. And I guess it wouldn't really wash out, because if you would have had 5 more animals and you had 5 pullouts, you're not really gaining anything. But the idea, the theory with is that if you have if you had 5 more pullouts, so you had 10 total pullouts, but you wound up catching 20 more animals, well, yeah, you lost a few more animals, but overall you gained. So you're 20 animals to the good, right? I mean, I don't know a trapper out there that wouldn't take catching 20 more coyotes a year, even if 5 of them pulled out, you know. Or even, I mean, that would be 25 if you count the ones that pulled out, right? So that's one of the things that I think not everybody thinks about all the way through is, you know, you pull up to a trap and you see how to pull. Them dang steel screen pan covers, I'm throwing them away. Well, let's look at the big picture, you know, and like I said, you're gonna need some data. You can't just use one pull out as a basis for that. The other thing, when you start talking about the benefits or the increased kill area that really intrigues me is from the gray fox perspective. You know, we got a ton of gray foxes down here, and gray foxes can be the world's worst about stepping everywhere but your trap pan. And so if I can stick this in, and then just about anywhere in that trap pattern they step, the trap fires, well, their foot's small enough, they ain't pulling out, and their foot's small enough that you ought to get a pretty good catch regardless of where they step. Bam. I mean, that, to me, this could be a game changer just for the gray fox scenario. So that's another thing to think about. And then one of the last things, and potentially one of the biggest factors in my mind, is, do they help your trap stay operational longer with weather specifically? And so rain, you know, does that, because we've all seen, you know, if you've run any kind of different pan cover, you've had a rain come in and you've pulled up and you've seen, you know, all your dirt and whatever washed out, and, you know, your pan sitting there shining, and, you know, your trap outline sitting there shining. I mean, everything just washed out underneath your pan or around your trap. And so then, you know, you gotta do something to get your trap back at least covered. But if the screen will help, you know, keep dirt and things from washing through and keep your trap better covered after rain events, that to me, that's one of the major factors, because especially in the South, the Southeast, the East, I guess, probably in general, we're fighting rain all season. I mean, it's been a struggle here. I've only got a handful of traps set, and I just snapped them the other day because we've had 3.5 inches of rain, and over the weekend, and more coming, you know, and it's just, you can't keep traps working. You can't be riding through fields with that much rain. I mean, it's just a mess. And one thing, I had a couple out, and I wished I'd have taken some pictures of them, because you could definitely see the screen over the pan, but really inside the jaws, it still pretty much looked as good as new. And so I think maybe if I'd covered the trap a little bit heavier, that they may have been just fine. And even the way they were washed, just a quick sifting of dirt over the top of that trap, and it's back in action, good to go. I mean, the trap fired, no problem. That's one thing that's got me thinking that even in the South, it might be worth keeping a bucket of dry dirt in the bed of the truck, just because depending on where you're at, we got red clay here, and you get an inch of rain overnight, and you're not sifting any clay over top of that trap. I mean, I've used peat moss in the past, and that might be a good option, but that's got me kind of thinking about keeping some dry dirt or something in the truck just for that scenario. When I come up and that the screen's exposed, put a quick sift of fresh dirt over the top of it and rock and roll. So that's where I get in thinking about those three things and how they may work together, and what all of that may mean as a total is what's really got me intrigued with these steel screen pan covers. Now, I'm sure aluminum, I haven't messed with aluminum screen, but that may work pretty similar. I don't think it's not quite as stiff as this steel. Fiberglass is pretty limp. I don't think you're going to see the same results with fiberglass. And I don't know that you get the same effect of the increased kill area with aluminum as you do with this steel screen. So I'm anxious to see how it plays out, how it works out, and I'll definitely keep y'all posted on that. My feelings after this year, and like I said, I'm probably going to be running at least another year or two of trying them just to see what I feel like, and try to track and see what it does to my catch rate. It's definitely a little bit more expensive than some of the other options. You can buy a giant bag of polyfil that'll last you 18 years for $6 or something like that. So these I order from Keg Creek Bait and Lures. I think they're $11 a dozen or $42 for 5 dozen. And like I say, they list specifically what size. Let's see if I have it still pulled up. And you can just Google. I just Googled steel screen pan covers, and they're about the third one down. Let's see. So this, I thought they had them listed for different sizes, but it's cut for a 6x6. Let's see. So they're cut for the Victor Montgomery number 4 6x6 and trim the corners off. And they cut a notch for the dog. And then it says specifically, jake traps. Okay, so these come 6x6, pre-cut, and then you can trim them. And I think I wound up trimming them 5.5 by 5, I think, for my MB 550s. So there is a little bit of trimming there, and like I say, that's $11 a dozen or $42 I think for 5 dozen. The only other place I found them, and it's not quite as convenient because it's not online, but O'Gorman sells, and he doesn't sell the pan covers, but he sells the screen. It's a black steel screen, and it's really reasonable actually. It's $1.80 per 13.5 by 36 sheet plus ship. You got to pay postage, but that you'd be looking at. Let's see. You're looking at 15 probably pan covers. Maybe not that many. But let's see. Yeah, so you're looking at 14 pan covers for $1.80. Now you got the time in cutting them, but I mean I got the time in cutting these too, so that's a lot cheaper, a lot more reasonable to order from O'Gorman. You can either call them up and just probably ask them about their steel screen, and they could tell you, or you're gonna have to send off $7 to get one of the catalogs and then place the order. But that is very reasonable. I tell you, the one thing this catalog, this O'Gorman catalog, is kind of neat, but it's so scatterbrained with all kinds of different stuff. It's kind of tough to tell, you know, what's a testimonial, what's kind of an advertorial, and what's specific about, you know, a product. So those are two options for the steel screen. I'll leave a link to the Keg Creek Baits and Lures in the description. And if you try it out, I'm definitely interested to hear what you think. You know, like I say, I think just thinking, trying to think differently, try to think about how, you know, you could maybe get more efficient, and efficiency is built on redundancy. Maybe I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, having one item being able to do multiple jobs, to me, equates to efficiency. And so and plus, you know, the advantage is, if this, you know, if this works as some folks talk about, of, you know, the increased kill area, which to me, only on gray fox, that could potentially be you know, a big plus. And then you know, keeping the traps better suited throughout weather is another potential big boon. So I don't know, just something that I think is worth thinking about, worth entertaining. I know we as trappers aren't always the best at thinking about things outside the box, and you know, there's plenty of opinions that you could read on, you know, one way or the other, but till you've really tried something for yourself, you don't really know how it's going to work, right? So anyway, I will let y'all get back to trapping season. I hope that you are having a good season, and I appreciate you bearing with me. I know I haven't gotten a whole lot out lately. I haven't posted many videos because, well, we haven't been catching anything. I ain't had but a handful of traps out, and having a new little one in the house definitely adds a different dynamic. I found one heck of an otter toilet. It's a farm that I've trapped the last couple of years, and it's a pretty big pond on it. There's cows all over it, you know, and so it's tough to kind of narrow things down. But there's one kind of steep bank that drops off with a few trees on it, and I was walking, checking it out, because it looked like some fresh beaver sign along there. And there's one spot where apparently there was an old bank den, and part of it had caved in, and I'm talking about, it looked like an otter condo or something. I mean, there was just otter scat. There was a huge pile of it in the, you know, the area that had fallen in, and then all over the bank. I mean, there was just piles and piles of fish bones. It looked like that whole pond had been just eradicated of fish by otters. And so I messed around. I set a few traps there. I'm pretty sure that I ran, while I was trying to get traps set out, I ran one of the otters out of that old bank den. But I got the one thing that I guess is worthwhile keeping in mind is I know that farmer lets other people back in there to duck hunt and things like that. And the other morning I swung by to check traps, and there was a couple trucks parked out there with dog boxes in the back, and it makes me nervous. You know, I've got full permission to be on there, but at the same time, I sure don't want to have any run-ins or catch any dogs or anything like that. And I had the traps in an area that I didn't think, you know, they were going to be hunting, but regardless, I went in and I snapped those traps, and I may reset them, but it'll be after duck season goes out. Just trying to be, you know, responsible about what I'm doing, where I'm at. So definitely, you know, as trappers are under increased scrutiny all the time, just keep that in mind. You know, it's something we all share in and need to be paying attention to. So y'all have a good evening, and we will catch you next time.